Drive Home Reviews podcast, where I review the movies that I have just seen as I am driving home from the theater. And, along with the end of Oak Street, this is kind of the official end of the summer blockbuster season. Started back at work the past couple weeks and decided to go see this one with a good buddy of mine, works next to me. He's become one of my close friends here, and definitely the guy who enjoys going to dumb movies with me. Sometimes his fiance will join us, but great guy. Love hanging out with him, and we love going to the movies. And we were looking forward to this because end of the summer, we got to go back to work. It's like one last hurrah. Dinosaurs attacking suburbia. Sounds perfect. So we go see this movie, watch it, the lights come up, he looks at me and says, "I'm mad at you." And that pretty much sums it up, because damn, this was rough. This was bad. It was such a unique flavor of bad as well, like the kind of bad that you can't quite place it. You recognize the taste, but you're like, I don't know what that is. And yeah, you definitely have to ruminate on it. Coming out of the theater, Eric, my buddy, he floated the theory that he believes that this was originally a straight up horror movie. That was the original intent of it. But that somewhere in the editing process, they realized what they had done and that the film was pretty much unsalvageable, and said, hey, let's make it an action comedy, and try to save this, which is a decent theory. I think something definitely went wrong in the post-production stage, because the film the early parts of it look like it's directed by somebody else, and then the latter parts, they don't quite match. I'll talk about that here in a second. So it would not surprise me to find out that something went wrong in the post-production stage. My theory, however, is that this movie was actually produced secretly by the people who make the last several Jurassic World movies, and they did it to basically make those pieces of shit look better by comparison. Because I'm not lying when I say this movie makes Jurassic Park 3, The Lost World, Jurassic World 1, 2, 3, the last one with Scarlett Johansson, they make them look like the original 1993 Jurassic Park. And I'm not trying to make this more than it is. As I say, you go see a movie about dinosaurs attacking suburbia, you understand what you're getting into. You know what this is. It's exactly what it says it is on the box. This is not going to be a complex character study, okay? This is not going to be an intricately woven Citizen Kane-esque plot. Fine and dandy, but still.
Do we have to put up with this? I mean, can't we get a better actor? I know it's a small part, but I think we can do better than this.
So, let's try to break this down. So, if you don't know the story, as such as it is, we have this little suburban town. It's 1982. I'm not quite sure why they decided to make it a period piece, but they did. Maybe so that they're... Well, I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea why they decided to make it a period piece. There's nothing in it that dictates making it, set in 1982 has any bearings on the story or anything, but whatever. So you have this small town, quintessential Americana, Norman Rockwell, block parties, that kind of thing. And one night, through hocus pocus and shenanigans, the town is transported back in time to the dinosaur era, and now the dinosaurs are attacking the townspeople. Our main focus is the family unit headed by Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor and their 2 kids, and their dog Starbuck, who I am also convinced that the original title of this film was Looking for Starbuck, because you can play a really fun drinking game with this movie. Every time they yell out Starbuck, take a shot. You will be blitzed. All right? By the end of this movie, you will fucking be off your tits. So there's a lot that kind of goes off the rails in this movie, and I'm gonna try to list them out as best I can. So let's start with the direction, because I can definitely see where Eric's theory that this was a horror movie initially kind of came from. The director is known for It Follows, so there is a pedigree there. It definitely tries to get a lot out of the what you think you see or what you catch out of the corner of your eye in the early parts of the film, which is funny when you consider that the advertisements pretty much told us what was going on. So we know that it's dinosaurs. We're aware of this. But it really does try to have fun with the mystery. But my problem with this, with the direction, is that it's incredibly pompous. I don't know another word to say it. There are certain shots in this that the director uses over and over and over again, and I'm not entirely sure of the purpose. It doesn't... I'm sure there was a purpose, because if you use a specific shot a certain amount of times, obviously you're trying to communicate something visually to the audience. But I'm not 100% sure what the hell that is. I'm going to try to describe this as best I can, because this is radio, not TV. So, but he loves this shot where you have 2 actors. One of them is in the extreme foreground, okay? Like the camera is mounted on their shoulder, and you're getting an extreme close-up of their profile. And then over their shoulder, sitting further back, is the other person in the scene. And he does this a lot in the early goings of this film. Where you really notice it is there's this scene where the family is sitting around. They're each sitting like equal distance away from each other, and like they're playing 4 corners. I don't know who sits like that. Anyway, and as they're going around kind of discussing what happened, and they're coming up with the working theory of where all this is, how they got there and what's all going on, they do this shot like every time they cut to a new person. And I can't for the life of me figure out why. The best I can figure is that maybe it's supposed to be a visual representation of the distance, not so much between the characters, but of the 2 time periods, the displacement, and you have one time period at the front and one in the back, and they juxtapose. That's the best I can come up with. And I bring this up because when you do something like this, I think a filmmaker has an obligation as a visual storyteller to use the medium that they have selected to find the best means with which to tell their story. Okay? So the idea of using some kind of visual language, some kind of shorthand to illustrate something like a complex theory, like the displacement of time and whatnot, that's fine. That's fine and dandy. No problems there. Okay? But it needs to be done in a way that's not calling attention to itself. Because otherwise, it pulls the audience out of the film by going, what the fuck is this weird shot? You know, obvious example, you know, masterpiece of American filmmaking, Citizen Kane. Little things like the fact that stronger characters look down at the camera while weaker characters have to look up at the camera. You know, things like him putting the camera way down, digging a pit to put the camera way down into the floor to film an entire scene looking up at the characters. It's the scene where he's lost the election and this giant of a man has kind of been laid low. You know, okay, there you have it. It's something that you notice something's different about the scene, but it doesn't necessarily draw attention to itself. This draws attention to itself to an extent of, like I say, it took me out of the movie, which wasn't hard, I should say, to make me go, what the fuck is going on with this shot, and why are we continuously using it? So things like that continuously kind of pull you out of the film. Let's talk about that scene too. Let's talk, because that's another thing that really that got my goat. So you have your basic horror movie caricatures in this. That's fine. Nothing wrong with stock types. And of course, the eldest child, the daughter, she's basically getting ready to apply to Starfleet Academy. You know, she's that girl. She reads all the science journals and all of the, you know, she wants to go and study where Carl Sagan studied and all this. Okay, fine and dandy. But they basically give her this interest so that she can explain to the audience what happened and how this occurred, which to me it's shocking on a number of levels. Number one, while he didn't direct this is a J.J. Abrams joint. This is this is one of his babies, you can tell. So the fact that they explain something feels really out of place in one of his pieces of work, because he loves doing shit where he doesn't explain anything. Lost, Cloverfield, you know, nothing was explained, and that was part of what made those properties intriguing, at least, you know, at the start with Lost. So the fact that they have to have this girl there, and they give her this interest to basically lay it out for us, just feels unnecessary. You don't need to explain this to us. You don't need to inform of exactly what happened and what's going on. And I actually thought, with this being a J.J. Abrams produced film, that was not going to be an issue. But here we are. You could not tell me that the creators of this film weren't influenced by the Twilight Zone. There are very Twilight Zone-esque elements to this film. But one of the great things about the Twilight Zone, and partially due to its format, you know, half an hour to an hour format, they didn't have a lot of time to dick around and give you the exact explanation of what happened, why it happened, the mechanics of how everything worked.
Well, Omicron Persei 8 is about 1,000 light years away, so the electromagnetic waves would just recently have gotten there. You see,
Magic. Got it. Whenever you notice something like that, a wizard did it.
No. Gremlin on the wing of the plane. Done. This airplane's flying and it went back in time somehow. All you need. It didn't take the time to feel like it had to explain everything. It just kind of said, here we are, here's the situation, fucking deal with it. I don't have a problem with the daughter as a character. I just have a problem with the fact they seem to give her this interest so that she could be the Wesley Crusher of the group that person who's way too smart and can explain these, complicated concepts like wormholes and temporal displacement for us, so we can go, oh, okay, that's what happened. No. All you need is, we're back in time, fucking dinosaurs. Alright? And look, glowy ball over there through which we can see our own time period must be the way back, or maybe it's not. You don't have to explain it. You really don't. And like I said, with this being a J.J. Abrams film, I thought that was something we weren't going to have to worry about. That it was just going to be, okay, here we are, and, deal with the issues. So I felt that was another thing that was very unnecessary, and again, pulled you out of the film. We don't need this explained to us. There are some little things. First of all, let's talk about this. Nobody in this fucking movie, none of our main characters, they seem to have all been born without peripheral vision. There are at least 3 instances in this film where a giant creature is within earshot. Like, you could reach out and touch the fucking thing, and all of these people are remarkably oblivious. Standing on a roof and a whole flock of, I don't know what the proper name is, I'll talk about that in a second, pterodactyls are landing everywhere near them, and not one person hears them, sees them, they're just going about with their dipshit conversations. Giant fucking albino snake crawls into the house, slithering through, doors are open, but not one person is like, huh, excuse me? No one sees it. Fucking giant, I think it's an Allosaurus, I don't know, giant fucking dinosaur sneaking up on them, looking like my cat when she's getting ready to pounce at the pigeons on the other side of the window. Sneaking up on them, getting closer and closer, massive ton creature coming towards them. Not one person hears this fucking thing, not one person sees it. And they're at a position, they're at an angle where it would be impossible for you not to notice, hey, there's a fucking, there's a motherfucking huge shape out of the corner of my eye. Do they all have a blind side? Were they all like professional hockey players and got hit and, can't see out of their periphery? Is that what happened? Because that's the only explanation I can come up with. And let me cut this little argument off at the pass here, because I know there's going to be somebody out there listening to this, and they're going to say, well, actually, the dinosaur really could sneak up on somebody and Okay. Listen very carefully, guys. I get it. I have huge respect for all disciplines of science. Paleontology has got to be just the amount of information and the amount of stuff that scientists have been able to deduce to the best of their ability just based on bones, just based on bone fragments. It's amazing. It's amazing the knowledge that they've been able to literally unearth. So I have nothing but respect for them and their chosen fields. I also understand that it hurts when you see your profession represented in film or television and it is grossly inaccurate. I understand that. Couple examples. For instance, Bring It On. These cheerleaders are operating and there's not any kind of faculty oversight. Not one person is there to be their sponsor. I don't know about you, but every school I've worked at, every after-school activity has to have a teacher present, and cheerleading, being an official school sport, would have a coach. Where the fuck's the adult in this movie? Or kind of combining the two, Love, Simon, where this high school is putting on fucking cabaret. Are you shitting me? So I get it. I completely get it. That all being said, and that all being true, I have to say, for myself, maybe I don't speak for everyone, but I do not give 2 piles of massive dinosaur shit if the dinosaurs in my dinosaur attack movies are scientifically accurate. I do not give a shit. Not 1 ounce of a shit. Okay? I don't care. I do not care. I do not care that the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park don't look the way dinosaurs actually looked. I don't care that the Dionysus doesn't actually have the fin and spit the poison. I don't give a shit. Do you know why? Because it's a fucking awesome movie, and I don't care. I'm not getting my science from this movie. That's just a personal point thing. That really isn't a point against this movie. I appreciate that it was trying to depict raptors and other creatures as science would now believe they existed. But, yeah, I just don't give a shit. And you do kind of feel like that is another reason they made this movie in the way that they did, to kind of go, see, we're scientifically accurate. Unlike those Jurassic Park movies, which lends greater credence to my theory that this was produced by the folks who did those movies, because it's almost like, see, these are scientifically accurate, and don't they look like shit? Don't they look ridiculous? Are you scared of these? No. And the dinosaurs in this, oh my fucking God. Okay. There are several scenes where the dinosaurs are chasing our heroes. And literally, they're right fucking there. They're right in front of you. How are you not taking these things down? Dom DeLuise on a skateboard using only the power of a light breeze to propel him could catch up to these people, but this fucking dinosaur can't reach its jaw out a little further and go snap. The fuck? I tell you, it makes the scene in the original Jurassic World with Bryce Dallas Howard outrunning a T-Rex while she's wearing fucking high heels, it makes that look plausible. Okay? I'm just like, what the fuck? Grab the goddamn person. Okay. I also love, this is another thing I picked up on, I love how this little town, and they're definitely trying to make it feel like, maybe that's why they said it in the 80s, because they're trying to ape that Stranger Things 80s kids horror movie nostalgia kind of thing, because the son has a group of friends who look exactly like the stock types for, the Stranger Things cast. They have him, they have the one who looks almost exactly like him, the black kid and the fat kid. Like, those are his friends. And they're perving on the new girl next door, staring at her through the fence because this was the 80s and leering was considered charming. But they also have a group of Stand By Me bullies. And the bullies are like, do you remember that episode of Seinfeld where Elaine made friends with the Bizarro Jerry, and there was a Bizarro Kramer and a Bizarro George? That's what it looked like. They looked like it was the bullies, the Stand By Me bullies. It had the main bully, a bully who looked just like him, a black kid, and a fat kid. It's like they're the mirror versions. It's like, what? Oh, and I hope you don't get too attached to any of these characters that they introduce during this block party, because you don't see hardly any of them ever again. You see their bodies, but you don't. They established this town and these relationships, but none of it pays off. Not a single one. And that brings me to the real issue. Let's talk about the real problem. So I've laid out what essentially are referred to as nitpicks. They're all true. But I could forgive every single one of them. I could forgive all of these and almost enjoy them in a so bad it's fun kind of way. Like, I don't mind any of these problems, really. but they are icing on the cake of the real problem I have with this film. Okay, so let's talk about what really drags this film down, and that is our protagonists, this family, are the most unlikable group of douchebags that I have ever had the displeasure of spending an extended period runtime of a film with. Let me give you an example. When one of our heroes, the young son, jumps off a roof to try to jump through the time portal to take them back home, the portal closes, he misses and falls to the ground. That should not inspire gales of laughter from me. But it did. It really, really did. That should not be the way I'm feeling about our heroes. I should want them to succeed and survive, not go, fucking stupid kid. But these characters are insanely unlikable. The daughter and son are not bad. I'll say that. The daughter and son are not bad. And actually, I'll give them credit that they behave outside of, the daughter's Wesley Crusher moment. They behave very much as I would think young kids would. Young preteens to late teens. They behave as you kind of figure they would. So, this does not really include them, aside from the fact that they do really stupid shit. All right? The blame for this falls squarely on our stars. I'm going to be honest here, guys. I've never been a huge fan of Anne Hathaway. I've seen her in one thing that I liked her in, and that was Get Smart with Steve Carell. That was it. Everything else I've seen her in, and I've seen her in her acclaimed roles as Catwoman. I saw her in Les Mis. I've seen her in I just saw her in The Odyssey. I've never been bowled over by her. I don't hate her. She's not one of these actors that I can't stand. I just don't think she's that good. That's all. And I gotta tell you, her character in this movie is the most unredeemable bitch. I have not seen a female character written this badly in a long time. And I can hear the nagging voice of a certain somebody who would always get on my case. You're just mad because it's a woman in control of the situation. I have no problem with that. Ellen Ripley was a woman in charge of her situation. She wasn't a bitch. Let me just lay this out for you. So Anne Hathaway's character is this dissatisfied housewife who hates her fucking husband. And we have no idea why she hates him, why she is so pissed off at him. Every time they give us a potential reason why she hates this guy, it's like immediately proven to not be the case. Like, he's working odd jobs. He's delivering pizzas, and she's mad at him for this. It's like, he's out earning extra money, even before she learns that he was laid off and he's been taking these odd jobs in an attempt to kind of make ends meet. Like, she's still mad at him at that. It's like, okay, he lost his job, but he's trying to still work and make money. He's not just laying around, he's not Homer Simpson. He's trying to earn money. Why are you pissed? Why are you pissed that he's doing odd jobs to make extra money? This is the suburbs in the 80s. This isn't a cheap time to live, y'all. She gets mad at him for trying to keep the kids calm and telling them he believes they're going to be okay and they're going to get through this. He's like, no! Why are you telling them that? We need to be honest and tell them that we're all going to fucking die! It's like, what the hell? Why are you pissed at him for trying to stay positive? I'm amazed he stayed as positive as he did. But she gets pissed at him for that. There's a scene after they get transported where he takes a thing of whiskey out and takes a swig of it. And I'm like, oh, okay, he must be an alcoholic. That must be what the problem is. No, she just kind of says it once and says, did did you take a sip of whiskey? He says, yeah. He doesn't lie about it. He says, yeah, I just kind of need to calm down. She's like, yeah, I need you here. I need you present. And it's like he took one shot of whiskey. And frankly, if I was in this situation and married to her, you know, I'm not a drinking man, but you better believe I'd be knocking something back. So, yeah, she's incredibly irredeemable and unlikable, and she writes a whole book about how she wants to run and leave her family and her kids. You know, so yeah, she's unlikable and for no real good reason. I have a feeling they were trying to make some kind of point about, you know, that time period is probably another reason why they made it an 80s movie, you know, about a woman giving up her career, but she's really the head of the house and she has to kind of retake her power. You know, you notice that there's a lot of that in this. You know, it's a little touch. This is not, okay, here's a positive, I guess, in terms of the directing. It's a little touch, but every time they get in the car to go somewhere and to drive around, Anne Hathaway is driving. And that's a subtle thing of, you know, that's using shots and visual language to communicate something to an audience. This is telling us that she is actually in charge of this family. That she is the head of the household. Okay, that's fine. That works, okay? No problems there. But just making her this unlikable shrew who hates her husband, apparently doesn't like her kids, is wanting to break away and run away from them for reasons that are not explained, it does not make for a protagonist that I want, A, that I want to spend any time with, or B, that I want to see survive. You know, it's not a good sign when you're cheering for the dinosaurs to eat one of your main characters. Unless you think I'm just being needlessly sexist, I'll say I kind of have the same problem with Ewan McGregor's character. His character is, I don't know what the term is, but he acts like Tom Hanks did in Big when he was the little kid who was suddenly transformed into an adult. You know, he literally acts like a 10-year-old trapped in an adult's body. Yeah, to the point that you can't take him seriously. They also feel the need to dress him in obnoxious 80s shorts to just make him look as ridiculous as humanly possible. So yeah, like his character he's the opposite of her. He's the happy dad. He's the goofy dad. He's like Phil Dunphy minus about 100 IQ points. So yeah, like both of these characters are just awful characters that you want to, you know, you don't want to spend time with them. You don't want to see them survive. But here's the real problem with this, okay? And the problem I have with this, aside from just that they're awful people, is that thematically, there's a real problem with this movie, okay? Again, I say that if I was told that the makers of this movie were very inspired by The Twilight Zone, I would believe it. But the thing that a lot of people forget about The Twilight Zone and its stories of, you know, the macabre and, you know, horror and science fiction is that 9 times out of 10 there was some kind of social commentary running through the entire thing. And I also believe you should judge the movie you have, not the movie that you wish it was. But I feel like there was a much better movie hidden in this if they had made one very simple change. The whole story of this is this entire neighborhood is transported back in time, right? So let me paint this picture for you. Think of this. What if, instead of us following this one family, what if we expanded the points of focus to the whole neighborhood? And what if, since we are in the early 80s, what if, you know, it's a predominantly white neighborhood, but, you know, there are there's a black family that suddenly moved in, and maybe there's a Hispanic family, or an Asian family, or maybe even a couple that turn out that they're actually a gay couple. That the rest of the predominantly white neighborhood is distrustful of these variations, these differences. And then when the town gets transported back in time, the community has to pull together. And every one of these different families, these different nationalities, religions, sexual orientations, they all had to kind of come together in order for the community to survive. That maybe one of them is an engineer and could use what they had to help create better weapons, and one of them could be the scientist who kind of says, hey, we need to look for these giant glowing balls and so we can get back home. And maybe one of them is former military and can kind of come up with survival techniques and things like that. And the community has to put aside their societal imposed differences in order for the greater number to survive. Especially in this day and age, doesn't that sound like a better movie? Doesn't that sound like a more interesting cast of characters? And you don't have to put it up on a soapbox. You don't have to put a neon sign over it. But it makes for a more interesting tale and, quite frankly, more characters that you can root for. But the theme in this movie seems to be divided between A, fuck everybody else, survival of the fittest, because at no time in this does anybody try to reach out to their neighbors, the people right next to them. They watch as their neighbors get eaten, but at no time does it occur to anybody, hey, we should try to gather up all the survivors together and try to survive in a group. That might be better. No, nobody, that thought doesn't even come to them. Hell, at one point, illustrating the unlikability of these characters, Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor's characters are arguing because Anne Hathaway basically wants to go and pillage all of the empty houses for food and water, and Ewan McGregor's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't, and she's like, we gotta survive, we gotta think of this right now. At no time is it, hey, we should try to get everybody together, pool all of our resources. No. There are a number of times when they're running, and you see in the background other people running and getting eaten by dinosaurs, and no time are they ever like, hey, come over here, join us, we're going over here where we can maybe escape. No, it is literally a message of every person for themselves, every family for themselves, and fuck everyone else. And then it piles it on even more. This is really where I got mad. This is really where I almost lost it. So I guess I'll put a spoiler warning up, but I really don't give a shit if I spoil this movie. But just to be sporting, spoiler warning.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Maybe say spoiler before you give away the end of a movie, okay?
They managed to jump through the time portal and get back home, and Anne Hathaway, it's revealed, she calls a couple, I don't think she called the entire town, but she called certain people in the town and told them to get out of town. When they get back, they're back like about an hour before the event happens that transports the town back in time. So she manages to call a couple of the people and get them out of town. And then we get kind of this prologue 2 years later kind of thing where this news reporter is going, yes, and she's the greatest human being in the world because she called some of the residents and got them out. And we show some of the characters going, oh, it was so nice of her to call. She sounded frantic, so I decided to listen to her. So the theme now shifts from every family for yourself and fuck anyone else to thank God for the bitchy suburban white lady. Wow. that's where I was already done with the movie by that point, but that just put the nail in the coffin. Much in the same way that One Night Only's finale kind of just made me go, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But by that point in this movie, I had no expectations that it was going to be anything good, so I just was kind of like, okay, that's...
So, you want to end your movie that way, huh? Okay, get bent. We're out of here.
And here's the funny part of all this. Here's the real funny part of all this, guys. I still would say that if you were looking for a quick day out, kind of an end of summer excursion, I would say, yeah, you could go see this movie. It's a popcorn film. I mean, again, you're not real. Maybe other people will like it more because their expectations weren't, as meticulous as mine. But you could still go see it. But you've got to be conscious of the next level versions of stupid that you are going to be faced with. I had a couple people ask me about this movie. My best friend asked me about it. My parents asked me about it, and my response to them was this: okay, did at any time while you were watching the original Jurassic Park, did you say to yourself, this exciting tale of nature run amok and dinosaurs living amongst us once again, and all these species trying to coexist and survive is good and everything, but you know what it's missing? An extended scene of two hairy brachiosauruses humping. If you answered yes to that question, well then good news, folks, because I've got a movie for you, and I'm not joking about that. That is an extended scene in this movie of two hairy brontosaurus, brachiosauruses, whatever they're called now, humping. And it's not like a background joke. It's like the main point of the scene. Like, they stopped the movie for this fucking moment to watch these two long-necked dinosaurs fuck. That is what this movie does. And if that sounds fun to you, then, well, find joy where you can in life, says I. So yeah, that's kind of the last word I have on this. So wrapping up, final grade for The End of Oak Street. I give it a D-. I'm almost tempted to bump it up to a D solid because, like I said, I'm not necessarily sorry I went and saw it because it was an end of summer movie, but it was a fucking bad one. So yeah, I don't know, but I give it a D- on this one. It's just, yeah, it's rough. I'll give the final word I will give you is a direct quote I got from Eric later that night. He texted me and he said, upon reflection, I would place The End of Oak Street below Theodore Rex and The Land Before Time Part 6 on my list of dinosaur-themed movies. So, and I cannot say I disagree with him on that. So, that's kind of the final word on this one. Okay, so that's all I've got. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hope you're all doing well. Have a great year, and as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.